Yeah, go ahead.
Gotcha. All right, it's 5:30. We'll call our meeting back to order and start out with our public hearings and presentations by the board. First off will be questions from the floor. At this time, any person wishing to speak on any question previously discussed through administrative channels and not on the agenda will be granted 5 minutes to make a presentation to the board. Please state your name for the record. Yes. If you'll come on down to the podium here. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Michael Ashcroft. My son goes to Rolla Public Schools here. He is a sophomore this year. We've had some quite colorful discussions with my son as far as missing assignments, and we've run into an issue. I've called the counselor, we've called the principal, we've called the administration building. All these missing assignments and stuff, and some of them are the teacher's fault and some of them are his. I told him, I said it's a 50-50 deal. It's not only the school, it's also you. I told him, I said you need to be held accountable. I called the counselor. Counselor said, I suggested ISS. I do not believe any child needs to be put out of school. They need to learn. That's what we're here for, is to learn. You come to school, you're going to be learning. If you give them OSS, which is out of school suspension, all you're doing is feeding a bad habit. I was told that that it wouldn't be very successful for him to be in ISS. And I said, well, I can't believe that. School must have really changed from where I was there. I landed myself in ISS one time also. We've all had our little path. I remember that all the assignments was brought to that room. We were fed lunch there. We were put in that room. We was not allowed to go out for lunch, go to the restroom. There was a restroom in the room. And I was told, well, you think that just a couple missing assignments are bad? And I said, yeah, that to me, I'm wanting better. Well, you know, he'll be able to get into a community college or whatever. I said, no, I don't want him to have to go to a community college. If he does get an opportunity, I would like him to be able to go to S&T or wherever he chooses. But with all these missing assignments, it's like no one's held accountable. I needed to know, why is the young man and the school not being held accountable for all these missing assignments? Isn't that going to look a little bad? You know, whenever you go to send in an application for a college, wouldn't that look pretty bad?
Well, I'll let Dr. Zala speak to some of this, but I can tell you, I understand that your missing assignments are probably affecting the grade, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, very good.
Yes, ma'am.
Very good.
We've had zeros. We've had F's on our report card. Things aren't being put on the parent portal correctly. So we have to keep emailing the teachers to find out exactly what's going on. We get 3 or 4 different stories, and I'm like,
And is it one specific class, or is it several
there's
classes?
a couple.
Okay, and is
There's
this a
about
new
3.
occurrence this year, or has this happened in years past?
In years past.
Okay, so
And then he gets upset whenever I say you need to be held accountable. Well, why are you holding me accountable? I said, your history. Your history. So now, all of a sudden, we're getting history from him and also the school. And I'm like, who do you really believe? You know, and he's like, well, I'm telling the truth. Well, how can I tell?
So we probably need to do a little research on our end to see how things are going there from our end, and let.
Yeah, when you say you call administration, it would be me. I don't recall that I've ever talked with you or.
No, you spoke with my wife, Jackie Ashcroft. Jacqueline.
I don't have. I don't
Well-
have, I mean, I don't know if maybe I have. We have 4,200 kids. I get a lot of calls. But
Oh, yeah.
the way I would deal with it is to sit down at the table in my office as you work your way through administrative channels. We bring the principals in, we kind of get to the bottom of
Okay.
some things. But I don't recall us ever doing that, so
Okay,
that's the way that typically would work.
right. And,
We're not big enough that we can't treat people individually, or small enough, and we're small enough where we can, so.
right.
I've not had one conversation with the principal. I don't know that you talked to any of the two assistants, Dr. Dare, Mr. Hounsome, so we would be the ones that would
Okay.
be
But-
next after the principals in the chain of command.
This is what I'm worried about is where society is. We all watch the news, we read newspapers, we listen to the radio. Look at where society is, because no one, not one person, it seems, is being held accountable and having to answer for their mistakes.
Well, I can assure you, we are on the same page with what we want for your child and every child
Right.
in the district. There isn't anything that any satisfaction gleaned by anybody here when a child isn't performing up to expectations. So I can assure you we're in 100% agreement there.
Yeah,
Sometimes how we get there is we can differ and talk through, but we're happy to walk that back, as Mrs. Jamison said, and we'll sit down and have a conversation with the principals and
Yes,
work
sir.
through it.
Well, I'll take a vacation day, I'll come in and I'll sit down with
Well,
you
we'll
guys.
try to work
Well,
it.
we work around your schedule.
We'll work
as
around your
best we
schedule.
can.
You,
Okay,
We don't want you to have to do that, so we're,
okay, I appreciate you.
if you would,
Thank the
if you
mother.
could leave, you got the name and number? Okay.
We've got them.
They know?
we've got
Okay.
your information.
I just have one, we had an episode in, history, an English class. Where she said that she put this on pericardial, and I was sitting there, me and Jackie both looked this up, and it was not there. So she emailed the teacher, well, this was at 6:30 at night, and all of a sudden, 10 minutes later, it was there. So, they're not getting that stuff off pericardial where they need to do that assignment on that.
Sure.
No, but,
I'm not saying we're infallible,
oh, no, I'm not.
and
One of it is Jackson's.
really the focus is, I won't mention your child's name, is the child and how well they're doing. So,
We
we'll,
want him to succeed. not
Absolutely, we do too.
we'll work back through it. 99% of the time, we can handle that without any issues at all, so.
Thanks for coming. We
But I
appreciate it.
appreciate your interest in your son. I wish more people were.
Right.
There's a significant number of parents that don't take action when they should, and,
Exactly,
there is no threshold or perfect amount. If a missing assignment is, if one is too many for you, then we're fully in support of that.
Exactly.
Sometimes people don't react, so,
Well, if we don't catch him now, he's gonna get lost.
yeah,
Yeah, we don't want that either.
100% agree.
right.
I've seen it happen, I don't want that to happen.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Cross.
We'll be in
Appreciate you
touch.
coming. Are there any other questions from the floor for items not on the agenda? We'll move on to our presentations on agenda items. Any person wishing to speak on items on the agenda will be granted 5 minutes to make a presentation. Please state your name for the record. Okay, we'll move into our consent agenda. Our consent agenda is utilized by the Rolla Board of Education as a means of dealing with routine matters which must be considered by the board but require a minimum of discussion. All Board of Education members receive and review written information supporting the items listed on the consent agenda well in advance of the meeting. While any Board of Education member is welcome to remove any item from the consent agenda for separate consideration or discussion for any reason, normally all items on the consent agenda are approved in one motion with a minimum of discussion. We have items A through K, on the consent agenda, and I would like to point out item K. It's the notice for candidate filing for the school board elections. The 3-year terms of Mrs. Clayton, Mr. Froelich, and Mrs. Haskell expire this April. Filing begins December 17th at 8 a.m. and ends at 5 p.m. on January 21st. I'll take a motion for approval of the consent agenda items A through K.
I'll make the motion to approve consent agenda A through K.
Thanks, Jane.
I'll-
I'll s-
Go ahead. I'll second it.
Thanks, Jim and Carla. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay. We're gonna. Did I supposed to read that part too? I didn't think.
Yes, no,
Is that part of K or is that a different?
no, that's part of the,
Part of K.
part of what you read.
Okay.
We're okay.
So we're on to new business, and we would like to hear from Mr. Graves, the audit report for 2018 and 19. Welcome. Good to see you again.
Well, as you know, we met with the audit committee earlier and presented the audit, so I'll hit the highlights for you here. Again, as I've mentioned in the past, as you well know, the last few years, a lot of the school districts, or most school districts we deal with, have had their veteran people retiring out. The new general ledger coding challenged a lot of folks, and they decided they'd retire at that point in time. And so fortunately, you had Kendra ready to move in there. And as she gets further away from Vicki and more on her own, we always kind of go through that little area for as an auditor of, okay, well, all right, how's it going to be, now that the other person's gone? And we're very, very pleased with how she's moved forward and taking things over for you and keeping a very complex operation moving very smoothly. And so we can't say enough about that. And I know we visited with her a little bit too. She has had some butterflies back in the day as Vicki was moving away from being there on a day-to-day basis. But again, we're very, very pleased for you with her and the job she's doing. With that said, I'll hit the highlights, and if you look with the first two pages of the audit report, that actually goes to page 3 and takes 3 pages now to say what we used to say on half a page about 40 years ago. But anyway, the main thing to you in the middle of the second page there, the top of the second page are our opinions, and we're issuing unmodified opinions on page 2 there where it says opinions, and there are multiple opinions in your audit report in this day and age. And so we're issuing unmodified opinions, as we have in the past for you, that nothing came to our attention, either situationally or departures from accounting principles, that would warrant a modification. So that's what you'll hear me come back and report to you. Then there's lots of other information, paragraphs that have to be in that overall 3-page report, but we'll skip over that. Then we're going to jump back to page 22. And this is the fund statement, and that's what you're used to seeing probably on a monthly basis with your budget and reporting operations. There we go. Excuse me. The main couple of comments here is your revenue this year, looking at the total governmental funds of $46 million was a 3% increase per year, and that's pretty healthy from what we're seeing this audit cycle. At the same time, your expenditures of 46, pardon me, I'm trying to see in these shadows here. Anyway, you had a 7% increase in spending. As you know, you spent about $1 million buying new buses, putting roofs on buildings, things of that nature, and we're trying to get some more of that done here in the near future. So the increase in spending is very calculated, and it's not a surprise from that standpoint. So I'm going to have to go to these reading glasses. Oh, wait, I've got a better angle on the light. So you wound up with a $107,000 operating loss for the year, compared to surplus of almost 1.6 million last year. But again, you pulled about $1 million in those two areas alone to spend down there. So no real surprises there as you move forward with reinvesting into the district facilities. Page 25, the self-funded insurance plan. Again, you had, as you know already, you had an increase in claims for the district, and you're already addressing that and making some changes and reviewing your coverage to address that. But the big thing to remember there, that ending balance of $2,280,000 is money this district has saved through the years since you went to the self-funded plan. So, like the rest of us, we're going to take hits in our health insurance coverage and what's going on from year to year, and but still, it's on over $2 million that's been saved from the district at this point in time. Page 26 begins all the footnotes to the financial statements. They're going to have all the required disclosures that the GASB requires you to have in an governmental audit report. Page 36, we talk about deposits, and as you know, state statute requires all local subdivisions to have their deposits either FDIC insured or covered through pledged collateral, or in your case, also irrevocable letters of credit, and we found the district to be in compliance with that requirement. We had no new bond issues this year, as you know. So I'm going to jump back to page 44 and talk about property taxes. The big thing there is that the last paragraph, the district collected 97% of the current year levy. That's down just slightly from the year before at 98%. Again, based on historical data, we expect that percentage to be in the 96 to 99% collected. And so the district was right where it needed to be. That percentage collected is an indication of the overall health of the district, and that your patrons, your citizens are staying employed and being able to keep their taxes paid and not causing undue strain on the district that relies on those taxes to help with operations. The next umpteen pages all deals with the public school retirement disclosures and the newer OPEB for the health insurance coverage, and I'm going to skip over all of that. You can read that on your own, and if you have any questions, please submit them in writing. Find somebody to answer them. Pages 70 and 71 is your budget to actual comparison, and we as auditors have to review your budgeting process for state compliance with budgetary chapter 67. So you look at all the reams of paper that we save by doing this electronically. I think I was told, Kinder, we made some small change today in your report. Is that right? And so instead of having to take 15 or 20 audit reports apart, renumber, change out pages, you can do that real quickly as we're all in this day and age. So again, the main thing is we found you to be in compliance with budgetary chapter 67. Page 79 is your schedule of federal expenditures, and the district spent over $4 million this year, and we as auditors, based on federal guidelines, have to select certain programs on a rotating basis from year to year and check the district for compliance with internal control over federal programs, as well as the specific compliance requirements of the programs. And then once we do that, we issue the subsequent 4 pages of reports. And again, other than the ongoing internal control issue, we found the district to be in compliance with all those requirements. And based on the discussion that we have on the segregation of duties that we had at the Finance Committee level, I'm surprised none of you ever said, well, how come you can't do internal control at the district level, but we have to at the grant level? Well, that's a good question that nobody ever's asked me, but the point is obviously it's a much smaller scale, a much ball game to deal with at that level than the district overall. And so that's why we're able, and I used to ask that question way back when as younger auditor too. So there are less requirements on controls over finances at that level, and virtually all of them work on reimbursement basis now, where you've gotten approved through DESI usually, or anybody else is passing through federal funds to you. And so we're able to look at a much, much smaller body documentation and controls that are necessary there. If anybody ever had that thought before. And then, of course, the lack of segregation of duties, and a question was asked in the Finance Committee of how many people we would need, and studies I've read would take 6 to 8 people in a particular type of transaction to achieve maximum segregation of duties. And so that adds a lot of administrative overhead that the district really can't, like everybody else, afford. You're in the business of educating kids, and we'll worry about accounting for it, but identifying more or less. So that's what you have to deal with there. But virtually everybody has that segregation of duties issue, and so you take counterbalancing procedures wherever possible, and we discussed some changes in deposits and things of that nature in the Finance Committee meeting, their audit committee meeting. Page 89, we have to review certain state activities and issue a report of your assertions, basically dealing with attendance and transportation and free and reduced price lunches, things of that nature, based on guidelines coming out of Jeff City. And then we come back and issue this report. And the main thing to you as a board is nothing came to our attention that was problematic, that would have to be being reported back to you at this point in time. That's the body of the audit report itself. We have the separate reportable, the communications of audit results. No real changes in that from things that you have seen in the past. This again is an executive summary of the audit process. If issues had come to our attention, they would be being reported to you at this time, or there were problems in performing the audit, and certainly there were none. And so there's nothing really to jump out at you there. And the last thing is the management letter. And again, we are required under professional standards to restate the segregation of duties issue, because again, you've got federal reporting, that's from Jeffersonville, Indiana. You've got reports going to Jeff City and other places, people, various oversight organizations, some of the finance operations. So that's your 2018-19 audit.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming down, working with Kendra. Thank you to you and your staff for all your hard work. And it takes a lot of work to get that together.
Probably a lot fewer butterflies over there with her leadership.
Yeah, I would say kudos to Kendra and her leadership. I appreciate you saying that in public. We certainly recognize that on a daily basis, and she would tell you that, based on the leadership of all our buildings and programs that we have, that they're good stewards of taxpayer dollars, and it's a good affirmation to hear that in November. And proud of you, Kendra, and staff. Thank you very much. It's really great.
Thank you for dinner also.
You're welcome.
Safe
Be
travels.
careful driving home.
We need an action.
We need a motion to accept the 18-19 audit report.
I'll make a motion to accept the audit report.
Okay, and a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Shannon. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. We're going to do a little reorganization on our agenda here to accommodate one of our guests. Rick Nobles is here with Excellence K-12. He's the one who led the charge on our recent survey, and he's got some results for us. We're all excited to hear. Welcome, Rick.
Thank you. It's good to be here, and thank you for moving me up on the agenda. As most of you know, I have a long drive back to enemy territory tonight. Before I get started, I would like to share a brief anecdote with you. I got here about 4:30 today and walked into the lobby, and I've never been sure what the function of the guard is, so I always just check in, and I walked up, and the guy was sitting there, and I told him, I said, I have a 4:30 meeting with Dr. Zalis, and he didn't say anything at all. He just kind of rolled his toothpick from one side of the mouth to the other, squinted at me, and he kind of tilted his head and said, "Who's he?" So if you ever wonder what impact Dr. Z has had on the school district during his tenure, there you go.
Appreciate that very much.
All right.
You saved that for his last year.
I did, yes. Just hit the arrow, right? Yeah, why don't you advance it? It doesn't seem to be doing anything. All right, as you know, we recently completed a patron telephone survey for you. We talked to 400 people on landlines and cell phones. We buy a list of callers from a company in New Hampshire. That's what they do. This random digit dial methodology is what Pew and Gallup and the other really smart companies use, and they tell us, statisticians tell us that we have a 4.9% margin of error with a 95% confidence level, which means I'm 95% confident that the numbers I gave you are within 5%. And in 40 years of doing this, I can tell you it tends to be very true. We only talk to registered voters living within the boundaries of the school district, and they have to know they live in the school district, and then we divide calls geographically to match a population pattern, and that's how the magic works. Only talking to 400 people to get thousands of people's opinions on stuff, okay? We always start off our calls with grading factors. We ask about teachers and safety and principals and a little bit of everything. And here are the kind of the highlights from a 5-point weighted scale. They give us an A, B, C, D, F, and we convert it. Performance of teachers at 4.37, that's always good to see. Overall grade of the district at 4.28 would put you in the top 10% of all the school districts we work with. So it's always good to see a very high overall grade for the district. These match up favorably with surveys we've done in the past for you. Okay. Strengths of the district, we ask an open-ended question, which we then code. What are the strengths of the district? Provides a good education, community support, and teachers. And then we ask, where can the district improve? This is the only place on the survey where you want to have "don't know" as the number one answer, because that means they're not percolating on something. Communications with patrons is in the top 3 areas of improvement of every school district I work with. No matter if you have a communications department of 20 people or 1, communications is always an issue with patrons. And it's a little bit of a scenario where you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them read what you just sent them. So, you know, that's not a knock on the communications department. Schools aren't terribly interesting to people, and so they don't read things that they get, and then they get a chance to complain about it, and they do. So that's fairly typical. Doing fine. That's great to see 62 people saying that. We don't usually see that, so that's awesome. Okay. 2 things here, and I needed to add a word in there, and that word is enough. So it should read, patrons don't know enough about these factors. They certainly know some, but this is where less than 80% of the people were able to give us a grade. So we consider that areas for potential improvement. Class sizes, meaning the number of students in each classroom, and pre-K program. And again, there's a significant part of your population that's not interested in reading about pre-K, and that would include people my age and over who don't have anyone in pre-K. So it's not unusual to see that. Then we asked for a level of support about a number of facility project ideas, enhancing the safety of the district, most likely to vote in favor 79%. Slam dunk, secure the entrance as well as renovate the library at Truman, 72%, slam dunk. Renovate the RT1 building through repurpose renovations. RTI, sorry, RTI building. Less than 50% at 49%, but I would point out on all of these, look over at would make no difference in voting decision and add that to don't know, because we have found that those are pretty much the same thing at this point. You're 6 months away from a potential election. Some people say don't know, and some people say it would make no difference, which is another way of saying don't know. So you've got 38% on that question that don't know. Science classrooms and labs, you've got 43% don't know. Expand the band and music room, you got, what is that, 40%? 50%? I don't know. I was told there'd be no math. 50%. Expand the pre-K program to serve more students, 53%. So you've got a lot of people there who are on the fence on all those things, which, given the results that you got on the online surveys that you did internally, where I know you had terrific support for the band and music room renovation, I would not let that stop me from putting those on a ballot issue. You have plenty of opportunity to educate people about those, and I think that you can make some deductions based on your other research that you have a pretty good opportunity to pass those things, even though if the election were held today, it's a coin toss. Okay, and that's what you're looking at. If an election were held today, you get 36% of people voting yes, 14% voting no, and 50% deciding once they got there whether they were going to vote or not and what they were going to vote for. So overall, pretty good scores. Here's how patrons would vote today. Oh, this is before they knew about the tax implications. We ask what we call a benefit of the doubt questions. If there were an election here today and some of the ideas you just heard about were on the ballot, how would you vote? Strongly favor or favor, only 31%. But again, if you look at, depends on what it costs, depends on what it includes, and don't know, you've got 44% of your people who are kind of in purgatory there. Okay? And then if we move to the tax tolerance levels, you'll see that, I better look at this because I can't see that far. Okay, at $100 per year tax increase, we were at 36%. Am I reading that right? 36%? Who would favor that? 25% who would vote no, and then various people in kind of the don't know opposed column. When we drop the tax level to 75%, your number grows to 39%. And we knew going in from our conversations that we were asking about higher numbers than you wanted or needed. We were just trying to see what a tax tolerance level was. When we got to $50 per year, you jumped to 53%. And then when we got to $25 a year, which is where we started, now we're up at 74%. So when you combine 74% with the numbers that you heard on the projects, you were sitting in good position to pass a bond election in the spring. Questions?
You want to back up one slide, Rick?
Yeah.
And back to that?
See, okay.
Yeah, to the one you can't see.
Yes.
Okay.
Go
the
for
one
it,
with the bars.
please.
All right, that one, yeah. So, yeah, so we also have the strongly favor column, which adds to that.
I don't think we included that in our percentages.
So.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can't see it on this either. I got to walk over there.
So it's like 47, 50,
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
65.
Oh, so-
As I was spouting those off, it didn't sound right. So what we've got is 47% at $100 a year, 50% at $75 a year, 65% dollars a year, and 88% at $25 a year.
Yeah.
Thank you for pointing that out.
So my question has to do with, this is based upon an average house, which is explained to the person that you're giving the survey to.
Right.
And we're supposed to somehow relate that to, the electorate, how they would view this. So can you talk a little bit about how they might calculate in their head what that would mean to them for their house, or?
Was your average home 100,000?
We had it in
I think it says 125.
125.
25.
And our average, our average is a little higher than that, a little bit less than 150, so we were in the middle.
In the middle.
Yeah.
What we have seen in this community and in other communities is, if you tell me that it's gonna cost the, average homeowner, if we tell them what the average home price that we're basing is, if you tell me that it's gonna cost an average homeowner of 125 house, $25 a year, and I own a 150 or 175 level house, I'm calculating in my head, okay, it's gonna be a little bit more for me. So maybe it's $30 a year, $32 a year, and I quickly divide that by a month, and I get $5 or something like that. So,
Okay, thank you.
that makes sense?
Yes?
Rick, I have a question. On the more likely to vote against, in your experience, does that number move much with education preceding the election, or are those people that are like, no?
Yeah, good question, Shannon. You will have a certain percentage of people in your patron group who are never going to vote for anything. Okay, we
Right.
call those cave dwellers, CAVE, citizens against virtually everything, and they just vote no. Doesn't matter. And they see you and the federal government and Obamacare and everything else on one side of the desk and themselves on the other. So you get, something happens on the federal level that's got nothing to do with you. That just riles those people up because you're all on the same side of the desk. You have other people, and you'll see here, and if you go back one slide and look at the benefit of the doubt question, I mean, this is what's really interesting. You've only got 31% to give you the benefit of the doubt to say, I'll vote for something before hearing about how much it costs, okay? And then you get over and you're talking about, it's only gonna be $25 a year, it goes all the way up to 88%. So in that next slide, if you look at the oppose and strongly opposed numbers at $25 a year, you're down to 6%, which means you have fewer cave dwellers than almost anybody I could think of. So that's really good. The people that you can probably sway are going to be more in that don't know category. The people who are dead set, I'm going to oppose everything, don't waste your time on them. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and then too, back to the specific ballot issues that you questioned about.
Right.
Just because I know, the gym one had a lot of opposition. Like, we had a column that was 36%, I believe it was, that opposed. And that was out of, that was significantly bigger than the other ones.
Roll back to that slide.
Right,
37%
more likely to vote
opposed.
against the 37%, which everything else was
Yeah.
less than half that. So I was just saying, I know you've done this a lot, just what's the chance of swaying people with education?
Well, they did vote differently on the other survey because they had the I would guess, because they had the walkthrough video.
The
Could
visual.
look through it. but
They-
you could-
It was a different,
There were two options on that question too,
Yeah.
and there was definite fall off with just this, and we experienced this the last time we did just a gymnasium or a performing arts center. It was the spot for tax tolerance that people dropped off too, because when you look at those alone, correct me if I'm wrong, performing arts centers, and they just don't rise to the level of importance, much like pre-K didn't for us here.
Right.
Three things that are hardest to pass for every school district: Performing Arts Center, natatorium, new administrative offices. The farther you get away from the classroom and the more esoteric that it sounds, and unfortunately a Performing Arts Center sounds like doesn't sound like reading, writing, and arithmetic, okay? So it doesn't surprise me that you would have that, but I think you could look at that more likely 37%, and I think there is a pretty good percentage of people there that you can sway.
Okay.
Yeah, because
I
I
most
think,
of the people in the make no difference and don't know category you can sway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Again, you saw the effects of that with your walkthrough and everything,
Right.
once you start to educate people. But, know, on the face of it, if someone calls me today and says, what do you think about building an auditorium with 9 pools in it? That sounds expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. But I think you got a good shot at it.
Okay, thank you. That did help.
Yeah, so having the survey out there for 5 months, 5+ months, and the popularity of that question, particularly 2B, which was the conversion of the gym and the construction of the new field house, was the second most popular question. None of the questions were bad. You know, we didn't receive negative feedback on any of them, and these aren't negative either. What this, I think, Mike, and you correct me if I'm wrong, because we've done a few of these, my takeaway is, where is the tax tolerance? And then our job is to go back and say, you support us because you gave us good grades, we've delivered on promises before, because last survey you did was that very thing, keeping our promises. Now we have to come back with a plan. Just don't exceed this dollar amount with the plan. And our job is to figure out, like we talked about at the beginning when we constructed the survey, we only wanted to know what you thought about the ideas in the beginning. That's kind of your benefit of the doubt question. And then we'll come back and attach the dollar amounts to it. We want to see if we're on the right track conceptually first, and then the tax tolerance, and then you weed it down to,
Okay.
you know, what can we do for, and
You know, I go through all of this and well, that sounds expensive and that's not in the classroom. Then you tell me it's only gonna cost me $40 or $50 a year. I don't care what you do. Knock yourself out. That's, you know,
yeah.
that's a very small hit, $4 a month, on my property tax, so I'm good.
I think the idea is to get something that's so specific what we're going to do that you can disagree that you just don't want to do it, and that we're fine with that. But this is exactly what we're going to do for this money that we're asking, and it's based on several months of feedback and then our phone survey. We got to this point with all those things we did, you know, a few years ago with the early childhood, and we had to take something off because it was gonna harm the ability to pass something. So we're right back at that spot. Now we just have to figure out what. Doesn't mean it goes away and it's a bad idea and you never resurrect it. It just means at this time.
Not now.
Yeah. And what was left over from the last one, which they said was a great idea, we just don't want to pay for it right now, was the auditorium project. So
We have had some clients find success by doing 2 proposals. All the things you know they're gonna pass in Prop A, and then Prop B, you take everything that you're, you know, not certain about, like, expanded band rooms and music rooms and what have you, and you put that on Prop B and you turn that over to your booster clubs to get out and pound the pavement for that. And, we had a client in suburban Wichita that ended up passing Prop B at a higher level because the booster clubs went nuts. You had field turf and a new music room and, you know, all kinds of stuff like that. It was kind of a weird marriage of different kinds of people don't normally like each other. They work together hard to get something passed that otherwise wouldn't have. So that's a thought.
Any other questions for Rick? Okay.
and once we figure out what to do, we'll reconnect with what Stiefel presented to us in terms of the increments. You know, because there's some opportunity there to do a pretty good one. Just got to get it right. We can run that back by Rick and make sure that we're not going to ruin our chances. But
Thank you for pointing out the strongly, because that changed a lot. Yeah. Thank you. Okay?
All right.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having me. Thank you for your
Thank
business.
you.
Thanks
Thank
for
you
your
very
hard
much.
work.
Safe travel.
Appreciate it. Be careful
Safe
driving
drive
home.
back to, no,
Sorry.
Rock Shock,
no,
Jim's
To Chiefs Land.
Chiefs Land.
That's
yeah.
right. Back to the kingdom.
My daughter went to Mizzou, my son went to Wash U, and my grandkids live in Lee Summit. So all my money flows.
Well, we appreciate we'll work with that.
see ya. Thank you.
Oh, we'll come back around to the rest of that, kind of a discussion that, on the long-range plan, so we can get into school improvement plan? Okay, so we're up on school improvement plans. Thanks for sitting with
Sorry,
us.
Kyle, I thought we were,
Well, I wondered, I just thought you were doing something different, sorry,
no, I just wanted to see you turn the lights on.
that's all right,
We have
good practice.
we have three schools presenting tonight, the junior high, our high school, and RTI, RTC. And up first, Dr. Fulton, Mr. Storms from the Rolla Junior High.
Good evening.
Hi.
I want you to know that after 11 years, the nerves don't really go away. So, and I'm sitting there going, oh my gosh, I've done this before, but I think that's okay.
A few
It keeps me
times.
accountable. So you're going to get a few handouts that I will address as the presentation goes on. Okay? Thank you. One more time.
Thank you.
So the very first handout you have, and up here because it is hard to read, is a review of our plan from last year. Whenever you see some blue items, they're either met or they're met and ongoing. Because oftentimes in our school, we have lots of objectives that sometimes we can meet within a year, but it's also something that's so good that we want to continue, or we need to continue for the next year. So you have those there. A lot of the things that we are doing, as you can see, ongoing is almost on every one. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. We're going to cover those as we go on. Okay? So one thing I'd like to review is our Missouri Assessment Program MAP Index scores. So this is comparing 2018 to 2019. And as you can see, 2018 in the blue and to 2019 in the red, we have increased each year in ELA, English Language Arts, and math, which we're very proud of. Our teachers and students work very hard. This was the first year for our science assessment. So our science scores, this is compared to Missouri because it is our very first year, so it is a baseline year. We scored above the state average by 21 points, which was very good for a beginning year. So one of the other data points we use is the NWEA scores. And last year I came to you, and that's what we based a lot of our school improvement plan on with some of our data. And so the NWEA is our local assessment. It is the Northwest Educational Assessment. It is a nationally normed test that is given by thousands of schools. And so it gives us data, because we give the assessment 3 times a year, it gives us data in which we can use to help students improve within language usage, reading, and math. And so these are our 7th grade scores, and as you can see, I look at it at the fall. We give the test again in January, and last year we gave it in May. And as you can see in 7th grade, thank you, we are showing an increase as we go through, which is what we want to show.
What is the y-axis trying to tell us as far as the score, or do we just know?
We want improvement. So the scores are a Roush unit, and they are nationally normed, which gives a score that if I look at a 220 score, it will actually tell me where kids are at in the curriculum. It tells them exactly where they're at and what they're ready for. So it gives teachers much more pointed information when they look at each student individually.
Okay, thank you.
Did you try? Got it? No, it's on there. So this is our 8th grade scores. When we gave it in the fall, which was in September, and again in January and again in May, if you look at language usage, looks some increase from fall to May. Look at reading, it kind of took a little bit of just a small decrease, but math made a large increase. Some of the things we associate to this is the timing of the test. Our kids in 8th grade take English, math, and science tests in math. We left the MAP test, the state test one day, and we immediately went into the NWA the next day, and we put them through 2, 4, 6 more days of testing. So we're not positive that was a really great move on our part, but we are going to adjust that this year. But the data from this assessment is so good. And the reading on it is rigorous, which is fine, which is what we want. So we're still using this. Very impressed with what they have done for the first year of giving it and going through and learning. And this year we are taking those scores and looking at it because we now have comparison data from the students in 7th grade coming into 8th grade. So the data as time goes on is going to become more accurate for us in working with students, which is one of our school improvement points as we continue to go through, is working with kids individually to differentiate and reach them where they're at and then how to grow them. So growth is one of our big focuses. And reading. So as we transition into our 1920 plan, I have just a few pictures up there because I'm like, it could all be words or we could share a little bit. Some of these pictures are on our Facebook page, and I'll tell you about our Facebook page in a minute. And thanks to Mrs. Ervos, I have embraced the social media world. But we have implemented a new program in PE, which is a strength and conditioning class. That's the picture at the bottom left. There's a picture in shop. The right-hand side kind of looks like a game, but it is actually periodic battleship. So they use the periodic table where they are learning different elements and they're going through and actually playing battleship. And then the top two is Carter Chance, and the right is Maddie Pence, who were speakers at our Veterans Day Assembly, which, by the way, you can view on our Facebook page. There's multiple posts out there. So goal 1, we have a general overall goal, which is all students will demonstrate growth in all academic areas through a quality educational program enhanced with technology. So what does that look like in every department? If you go to the next page on the handout that I gave you, you have a sample of the school improvement work that our teachers do. When they get into groups, they work together and they create plans. And so when you look at those, you will see that they are data-driven. They are very specific in their strategies tied to their professional development, as well as the work that we do on a building level, which is our reading initiative, and as well as what they are going to work on within their departments. So those are for you to look at to see the detail that they actually go into, and I work with each department PLC team leadership member to go over it, and then we also, between the two of us, make it into their meetings so you can see what they do. So that is just for you to look at to get an idea of what we do. This is an ongoing document that we look at, and they have to report back to me in January, and they report back to me at the end of the year as far as their progress. So it's in a shared drive. They have access to it at all times. So when you look at that, that looks very vague, but it is very specific when we get into our departments. And I don't have enough time to show you every department, plus our character team, plus our governance team, and all of those things. But this is just a sample of what we do. So when you look at our first strategy, one of the things that we did last year is we implemented reading strategies, and we had the Regional Professional Development Center come in, work with us, provide some professional development on reading across the curriculum. We are still continuing to do that, but using our own staff this year as far as teaching them what a close read looks like, and as well as how to implement that within the curriculum. So one of the things that everyone will have is to increase the reading ability of students. Last year I tweeted a video of them teaching a reading strategy within a math classroom, and we did it in PE, we did it in science. History has read like a historian, so our teachers have embraced that and are moving forward with it all across the board. We also will use our math and ELA MAP scores, and we're going to use our NWEA scores and our Roush unit score and look at the differences from fall to spring, with January being a benchmark date, so we can look for improvement. Teachers are piloting individual goals as far as our NWA with our students at this time. Our PLC teams or our departments will set SMART goals, which is what you see there, and the teams identify instructional resources needed to achieve their goals, using the building's state assessment data and the NWEA RIT or the Roush score. Again, looking at fall of 19 to spring of 20. We're also making a concerted effort to evaluate our intervention time. So I have brought in Dr. Herman Blau, who has been working with our teachers and has created a teacher model from the ground up. I surveyed my teachers about what we thought we needed and how we needed to improve intervention time. That was really, really hard because I sat through one session, had my interview with him, and then I walked out. So he had all day long with my teachers, he compiled the data and then brought it back, and I'm sitting there going, oh no. But it was really good to see and read and investigate things from their point of view. It was funny because the teachers thought that I had something in mind of what to do, and I had absolutely nothing in mind what to do. I wanted them to build it, and they did. And we're in the process of revising it and revamping it as we go, because that's what good teachers do, is we do that. So that is the very last thing that we have done, but we are also using our data to do that. We're also found a way to identify in ELA, in our new textbook, a way to actually identify some scores by standard. So I have been working with our English teachers to do that as well. In goal 2, we talk about technology integration skills. We have 5 new teachers this year, so they are going through a lot of rigorous technology training, which is good. We are utilizing our technology instructional specialists. We are very blessed to have them on our building, so anytime we need something, they're very close. We provide access to technology training to all of our staff, and we have gone to, instead of increase, we have gone to maintain the technology resources available. But there is a Chromebook cart in every core classroom. So that's every math, English, social studies, and science classroom in our building. And now we are at the part where we are at replacements, which is very good for us. We also have a checkout cart that is available to the others as well. In one classroom, we actually have a mix of a few iPads and along with some Chromebooks coming in. So we're doing very well in that aspect. Okay, any questions so far? This is the number of devices that we have in our building, and I have ran this over and over for you, and I took off 16, 17, but it's important to see that we have 712 Chromebooks in our building that are sitting there available for students to use. A little bit more than our enrollment, we're not quite 1-to-1, but because we put them in the classrooms. But a student has access to them at any time that they need them, and I think those are really good, impressive numbers. And so the one laptop is the checkout laptop that we keep in there for teachers if computers go down. Goal 3, climate and culture.
Good evening. That's my goal to share with you. With this goal, one of the things which we take a look at in our collaborative culture is we meet with groups of teachers, our committees, etc., and we form this goal. One of the things we want to start new this year was the creation of a social and emotional learning leadership team. And we've got the members of that team in place, and they will be going off soon to the School Wellness Symposium. And that team will be working with our other teams, like our Restorative and Character team, so that we can share and disseminate what we learn to also provide more opportunities for our students to grow in activities in social and emotional learning. We continue to use our restorative practices that we have worked on and adopted over the last few years, and this year we're working on working with students so that they feel like they have voice and input in the classroom, helping them develop social skills within a group. We're doing what's called community circles with them. They'll both build relationships and empathy and respect. We still have our pyramid of interventions, which we've had in the past, but we've been able to go ahead and add to it some more options, which like for example that we have available that you're familiar with now through the KEY program, and also some options that we have to work with students with various restorative practices and activities. Students' feelings of belonging and involvement. I was sitting, prepared for this, pondering about this myself, and I I notice that lots of our students, and this is an occasional thing that teachers point out, Sherry, they're very screen focused themselves. They're very, the level of communication they share seems to be a little smaller with texting and the vocabulary and stuff like that. And so one of the things that we're working to do in changing this culture is some of these activities and other things where students communicate with each other face to face. And I've been encouraging some teachers to plan some activities. One of the things that I learned through my survey last year was about along with instruction and assessment, those were areas I wanted to grow. And so we've had some conversations about activity and interaction days where they can take their learned material and apply it, either using through technology or using it working in groups and fun activities to take it to that higher depth of knowledge and practice and make a class a class lesson that involves more interaction and working together. We continue to work to increase our parent involvement and engagement at RJH. We survey our parents in March. We have our parent organization, which is currently working on our winter decorations for the building. They keep the building looking like a wonderful school for the students. And we continue to work at find areas that students can become involved and feel more a sense of belonging. We've had a couple more clubs this year. We have several clubs. We now have SCCLA. We have chess club back. We've lost it for a little while. And we have robotics also. We have the daily and the quarterly announcements that we're getting out to our parents. Dr. Bolton's going to talk a little bit more about some of our web pages and some of the other ways which we're hoping to increase communication and reaching parents, etc. And then as far as our transition with our students coming in, we're still doing our orientation and our various activities with them to get them ready to come from middle school over. Plus, I do some home visits with some that I anticipate may struggle with transition as input from the middle school administrators that provide me, which I've shared with you about those again in the past. But this year we've added a little bit more to it. Dr. Fulton and I, I'll let her click to the next slide. We have wanted to increase those getting out and actually recognizing and celebrating our students of the month. So we have a couple pictures here. Dr. Fulton has the poster, which we went out and congratulated. These are two of our students of the month. This is Seth Kuhlman, is the one on the left. He's actually one of our staff members' sons. And then the other one is Shelby Blake, and another student of the month. We have two students of the month, with 7th grade and 8th grade each month. And we have a teacher of the month. But this opportunity, and we're putting together some folks to go with us and allow us these celebrations. We're giving us more chance to connect with parents and to celebrate success with kids and recognize achievements. Do you have anything you want to add about those right now? Okay. The next goal is our attendance goal, which has always been a goal since I've been an administrator at the junior high. It's evolved a little bit as we've gone from just straight percentages to becoming proportional, which means percent of time that a student is there. So if you say our goal is 90% proportional, that means the student is there 90% of the time, 90% of the days at school. So we had set that goal. I give you some review numbers there, and we had a very pleasant surprise last year. We had one of our largest gains ever. We're at 94%. So this year our goal is to get to 95, and we're working hard to get there. Some of the things that we continue to do and are doing, working at that, is we collaborate with our counselors, administrators, and our attendance team to communicate about kids and attendance. We do weekly attendance reports. We also have our daily communication going in and out of our offices about kids and check checking in, parent calls in, and we follow up and check in on kids that are gone after the second day. The first day, if we haven't heard from parents, the second day, we try to see if any classmates, friends, et cetera, know. And once again, our PE coaches that see all the kids in the building they collaborate weekly with us to pick up reports, see the kids that are most recently gone. And those are the kids that they encourage to come to school, continue to visit with them, to set goals and build relationships with them and encourage them. One of the other discussions that I had with staff members going back to the previous goal is what activities in your classroom related to learning, and what are the things do students look forward to? Do they set as a goal at the end of the learning unit, et cetera? And we're looking at some of those which are incentives for students to be involved in the whole learning process of that unit, et cetera, so they can be involved in the final celebration or the final activity, which may involve some of that we talked about earlier, the higher order thinking, depth of knowledge, and some tech integration for some neat use of learned knowledge. We continue to have our attendance and recognitions and celebrations. We've been working on securing various incentives such as prizes, sometimes BULLDOGS, recognizing our kids that are there all week, taking care of business. And our Pride Time teachers will work with students also and recognize them when their attendance is excellent. We have realized and have found out that one of the major reasons that junior high or middle school students may not be at school is they may not have either the home environment that's supported, or they may not have, or they may have some social or emotional issues that sometimes allow them to not want to be at school. And so having conversations with them, students that are missing, some of the teachers, and making a point when they miss, to emphasize with them, is everything going all right, what's going on. I think that's been positive too, along with the fact that students are able to keep up with their work a little easier now. A lot of it's on Google Classroom, but the attendance is even getting better, which I was concerned when we first started getting so much stuff on Google Classroom. Some of our kids would be tempted to not attend as often, but attendance is getting better because they're going to be there for the whole, be there for all of it. So. And then we have some students that we work with. We collaborate with Dr. Bolton and I, the counselors, and those students may be really struggling, and we try to get with those students, their families, and look at support plans and contracts, and possibly even short-term and long-term goals so that they can get their attendance up to a level that is a goal they set, keep them up in their schoolwork and being successful. Any questions?
I've got a couple. How is the student of the month chosen? Is it teacher recommendation?
The teachers nominate them.
Okay.
And once they're nominated, it comes back out for each grade, and then the teachers get to vote again.
Great. And then another comment I just want to make is, I have found that I do think a lot of kids don't communicate anymore to each other. I think it's all text and on screen, everything like that. So I'm so glad you all are focusing some on that, because it's a skill I think that is being lost. That socialization skill is being lost. So I really think that's great.
With our initiative to raise our reading scores, et cetera, one of the things that continues to come out is the vocabulary. And just, when you have a lower level communication, such as texting and stuff like that, you just don't have as many words, and you're not using them. Plus, face-to-face interaction, you're missing really big pieces.
I mean, I notice that my own family, like at a dinner or something, like no phones out, they have to talk to each other, but it's something you almost have to make an effort for sometimes anymore.
The things we take for granted.
Exactly.
Cadence, tone, et cetera.
Yeah.
They're those keys to
Yeah.
social, emotional
I'm
indicators
so glad
of
you're doing that.
how your conversation's going, how it's been received.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So in goal 5, we're going to talk about That's our governance goal, and that's how Andy and I operate, and of course our counselors as part of our leadership team. One of the things I was pretty grateful to see tonight was the communication piece on that survey, because that comes up in my survey every year, so that's something I'm always striving to work on. The picture there is a screenshot of the s'more newsletter that I send out. We're sending out quarterly because parents get daily announcements. I know they don't always read them, but they get them. And so quarterly, we're trying to make it a little bit more meaningful to give them information. We have a counselor's corner within our parent newsletter that goes home called the Dog Dispatch. And then there's a message from me. There's a few highlights of what's gone on throughout the quarter that is already underway for our second quarter at this time. I also use the s'more to communicate with our staff every week. It's very simple, easy to put together, and very easy for them to read. Based on that feedback from my teachers, they want things in order of importance. And I found that to be interesting, because when I went back to them and asked for the feedback, they said, we want your message at the beginning, and then I always put in a best practice in instruction. So that goes second, so they know it's important, they read it, and then we go from there with important dates and those types of things. So it's interesting, and some of the very important dates that come up go at the very bottom. It's been interesting to hear back from them and to reflect on that process as I go through, especially since that is a way that they, we look at every time. People don't always see communication as what I perceive, so I work on that and try to meet it in various ways, which is part of the social media part. Parents are on Facebook. The kids tell me they're not on Instagram, but some of them are Instagram, some of them are on Twitter. Twitter is my personal learning network. That is how I communicate with other professionals and things, which is, by the way, how I learned about the news signs, or the signs, because I just stole that outwardly from Beth Huff in Fulton. Not even gonna lie about it. She did it. I'm like, cool, and then we made it happen. So I love that ability to be able to do that and have that network there. In my professional development, I spent quite a bit of time again with Beth Huff, because I was trying to embrace the social network piece that Gina was saying, oh, come on, Monica, you can do this. And I was a little worried, but having that support of other administrators has been great, as well as our South Central Principals group. That has been wonderful as well. So I work on that all of the time. Part of our focus this year throughout our team is working on that social emotional piece, or trauma-informed care and trauma-informed classrooms. So whenever we go on Sunday, it is a full day starting at 8:30 Sunday morning, ending at 3:15 on Monday afternoon, of a school wellness symposium put on by the secondary school principals. It's going to be very insightful. So our team is put together. We're going to go, we're going to learn, we're going to come back and put some things in place. I also spoke today with Dr. Frost from Compass Health, and talking about maybe some training coming in for teachers, so that has been beneficial as well. And we love our Compass partnership with them. It has gone very well. Very pleased with that piece. And as we go through with those focuses, that's what we're going to do. Of course, surveying our staff and our students and our parents is always very important. But I'm going to be honest, I can't get a lot of parents to give us some feedback some days. Some days it's like when I have 600 kids and I get 3 or 4, it's like, okay, you give it to them, but they just don't take the time to fill it out. So we'll keep pushing that part and keep working on that part. But I have a good parent team together, and so they also give me the feedback as well. So one of the things I'd like for you to do is to go out and like our social media pages. All of our social media pages have the same profile picture, which is the Rolla Bulldog. So that's important for you to know, because Facebook has a page out there called Rolla Junior High with JR as junior. Ours is all spelled out, and it actually says Rolla Junior High School Official, because people are actually tagging the Rolla JR High rather than our page, and our Instagram page and our Twitter page. This is not something that I manage alone. As I continue to grow the teachers in this, they're actually taking ownership and posting things as well. So I'm very happy with that, because I just said, I can't manage this alone. To be honest with you, Mrs. Pitts is my Instagram guru. So I'll even send her things and say, okay, send it out and do all your little magic with it. And then it also posts to Facebook and Twitter as well. So right now I'm trying to figure out how to get the picture on Twitter whenever it posts from Instagram. So sometimes it goes twice, once without a picture, once with. That's because Christopher led me to this program called If This Then That. and I'm not sure I have it set up right, but it's getting out there, so we're trying it. So we would love it if you would follow us. That is on the Facebook page. That is where our Veterans Day Assembly is with our speaker. You can see everything that happened, including our choirs. I was very, very pleased. They did not mute our music, which I am like, awesome, that is great. So you can go out and see our Veterans Day Assembly and our speaker. We would invite you to do that. And at the end, the last page that you have is all of the things that we have just talked about put in the same placemat as our district. So everything that we have there ties right back to the district, which is what you will also see within those plans that I showed you that our individual teams create. And thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be here and work with our kids every day and work with you. It is truly a pleasure. Any questions?
Is more like a newsletter template? Is that what you're talking about? Okay.
It is.
Well, you said it a few times and made me a little hungry, so.
I know. I
checking.
think about s'mores every time. Yes, it is. It's a newsletter template that many use as an easy way. You can click a button, put in a picture, click a button, put in a title and text. You can very quickly put in an event. It also gives a map to the event, so we send that out to parents as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Great, lots of good
Yep.
things going
All
on.
right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. Next up, Dr. Pritchett and Friends. Sounds like a music group, right? And we'll hear from the Rolla High School's School Improvement Plan.
Well, welcome. Thanks for having us. We're here to share with you a little bit about the high school. Some great things going on at the high school. I did want to mention kind of a follow-up to Monica's because she neglected to mention. So you heard the name Beth Huff. She's a well-known middle school principal around the country, and she's a Rolla High School grad.
That's right.
So we're going to claim her, even though she's worked with her, we're going to claim her as a product. And she's actually coming to NHS banquet this April to speak. She's going to be our speaker. So just a caveat, has nothing to do really, well, has a lot to do with the high school, I guess, because she's a high school grad. So anyway, you have in front of you the school improvement plan for the high school. You'll see that there's 4 goals on there, so we're going to kind of talk on those tonight. Just to tell you briefly how those were developed, each year we start at the beginning of the school year with our staff. We take last year's goals and strategies, and we look at those and we evaluate what did we accomplish. Let's take it off. What did we meet or not meet? Let's talk about whether we need to continue that, alter it, edit it, continue with it the way it is. And then also what is there new that needs to go on. And so our staff, we break up into groups and we brainstorm that. We use our leadership team to facilitate that process. And one of our CSD days that we have, that's part of what we do during that day is we meet and do that. And we take the suggestions, the notes back from each of those groups. The leadership team gets together with all the administrators and we talk through how to wordsmith what we want to accomplish. And so what you have in front of you is what we came up with for this year. We're going to cover today not all of the strategies that are listed there. And so what you're going to see over the next few minutes is last year, a few of last year's strategies that we met, maybe ongoing, maybe didn't meet. We're going to see some of that. But we're not going to touch on every strategy because there's just so much that goes into it and so much to do. So you'll see that. We're also going to touch on new stuff for this year. And so each of us, we kind of arm wrestled for who got what goal. And so that's kind of where we are. So again, thanks for having us. I'm going to turn it over to Sherry. She lost, and so she has to do the first one.
She lost.
And so I'll turn it over to her, and she'll talk you through the first goal.
I'm kind of in Monica's camp with no matter how many times you do this, it's still a little nerve-wracking. This is the first time they've given me the clicker, though.
Oh, that's
so this,
interesting.
you know, I'm improving in their estimation, I guess. Let's see here. So our first goal speaks to our overarching endeavors to maintain a positive school climate. What you're seeing here are some of last year's goals. As you can see from this slide, encouraging all of our students to be present 90% of the time is a goal that has already been consistently met. Attendance is always going to be a priority as we continue to look for ways to encourage students to be in attendance and engaged in their learning, kind of a symbiotic relationship with the climate. If kids are happy to be at school, they're going to be at school. Our goal of increasing counselor supports has also been met and continues to be ongoing. That goal has evolved, and I'll speak to that a little more in just a moment. Our final goal from last year that we'll be talking about this evening for Goal 1, or strategy from Goal 1, is to look for ways to increase our student involvement, and this goal is also ongoing. The latest example of our efforts to make sure our students are plugged in and engaged took place very recently with our staff coordinating, looking at our seniors. And we were happy to find that each student had made a connection in that activity that we did, which was really nice because I think it was an activity that Jim had brought back from a conference he had attended, and the results from that activity were not as successful as what we saw with our students. So it was nice to see that our kids are plugged in. This year, we are continuing to maintain a positive school climate. The first strategy that we're looking at is implementing new behavior management opportunities, specifically those that do not negatively impact a student's academic performance or attendance. Mr. Smith is going to talk to you a little bit more in detail about this later, but among these changes are the addition of our alternative suspension location, the changes to our alt school, now known as the KEY program, and the institution of a lunch detention for those lower level behavior referrals such as tardies or cell phone use, those types of things. We have tentative results that suggest some academic success in that. We're kind of making that connection. We're hoping that's where the connection lies. Whereas this time last year, we had 373 Fs on the books for our kiddos. This year, we have 260. So we're seeing that's a marked improvement. So we're hoping that these endeavors are proving fruitful in that regard. Additionally, under the umbrella of maintaining a positive school climate, we're increasing our mental health awareness, exploring new ways to provide social, emotional, and health supports for both students and staff. We have student groups and clubs that focus on positivity and mental health awareness and being sensitive to those issues with their peers. We welcomed Angie Wallace as one of our guest speakers to talk about suicide prevention. She had lost her son to suicide, and she spoke to some of our kiddos that were in her leadership groupings, facts, and health about the impact of his suicide on her family and those that they leave behind, and that was very impactful for our students. She did an excellent job, and her message was very well received by everyone who attended. This weekend, Dr. Fulton mentioned that we will be attending the Wellness Symposium put on by MOASSP, and we're really excited about that. We're excited to maybe bring back some strategies that we can share with our staff to continue to support our students with their mental health issues. Also, we continue to look at our partnership with Compass Health, which we all feel has been very successful. We have Amy Chambers comes to our school 3 days a week, and we keep her schedule filled every day that she is there, and she has been a very positive impact as far as freeing up our counselors also with some of those higher level needs from having to spend so much time with the higher level needs students, and then also giving them time to then have more time for groups, grief groups, things of that nature, anxiety groups with our students and meet in that capacity. So it's been very wonderful. I think we also have our Wyman counselor that comes over as well from Compass. We kind of share those. I spoke a little bit about the anxiety group. It's kind of a neat dynamic with those students. They meet for 8 weeks at a time, and they're given tools on how to manage their anxiety and how to be more self-aware about those things. And so that's very promising as far as helping our kids deal with any issues that they might have. And the placement on that, I guess I don't want to speak to that too. That's through recommendations through teachers and staff for those students. We're excited about the progress we've made with regard to our students and their mental health, while realizing this is not a topic that has a quick or easy fix. It's going to be an ongoing thing, kind of a learning curve, and we're just going to roll with it and do the best we can, keeping our students in the forefront of our focus and supporting them with their mental health.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My goal is on technology. That's part of my job at the high school, is to work with teachers with technology needs, as well as our information, or our information technology facilitators. I can't remember. That's their name. Christopher, Jeannie, and now Nikki, to make things work smooth with the technology. So from last year, on goal to increase technology for classroom instruction, one of our strategies was to increase the number of devices. That's going to be ongoing. Currently, we have 37 Chromebook carts within our classrooms. We still have 2 iPad carts. That's in a math classroom and a SPED classroom. The math teacher uses lots of apps within that, within her classroom. And then we also still have 2 laptop carts, primarily for our Project Lead the Way use, and their programs. So we still have to keep those. We used in-house experts to share tech training ideas. Last year at one of our faculty meetings, we asked all of our teachers to make a list of things that they are competent in, give me names of who's competent in that, and what of our needs. What do you want to learn? What is needed? And so I compiled that list in a couple of our, one last year and one this year. We've done some in-house training of just our teachers teaching other teachers within our building. So we know that a lot of them are very tech savvy, so we want to highlight that and allow them to be able to teach other things to their fellow colleagues. Some of the things that we did were Google Forms, some workshop kind of on that, some screencasting, just cleaning up your Google Drive. Sometimes that's, I just call it Google Drive housekeeping. I know sometimes I just need that time to work through some of those things, so we like to give that to them. And then also how to become Google certified was another one that we looked at. And then lastly, from last year's strategies, we said improve and update media center to include establishing a tech hub. That one has not been met fully, that we've kind of continued that on for this year as well. Some of the things that we did with that last year, we kind of surveyed and looked at what the students needed or what they would like to see within our library. That library has been the same since it was constructed in, I believe, what, 93, 92, about the time I was coming into high school. And so it basically looks the same as when I was in high school a few years back. So we're wanting to update that to the tech, the idea of having some areas of collaboration with students and have that technology piece in there. And so we're very excited to continue with that goal. We also had a student who drafted up some constructions of what it could look like and what some of those options are. So we did that kind of last year, and for this year we're going to kind of evolve, hopefully, with that as well. So for our 1920 goal 2 of increasing technology, we're still wanting to continue acquisition of devices. We have a running spreadsheet that if a teacher says, man, I'd really like to have a cart, and I put their name on the list. And so then Dr. Pritchett and I kind of talk with funds and stuff of what we can grant with that. We also have carts within some of our classrooms that are getting a bit older that we are going to be working with the tech department and being able to replace some of those. So that we can kind of keep things up to date for our students. Another strategy for this year is to promote use of technology relevant to the 21st century learning. Obviously, one of our goals will be to prepare our students the best that we can for the outside world and be able to, once they leave high school, to be able to use some of the tools that they've learned at Rolla High School to facilitate their careers after high school. And so we want to encourage our teachers to, use the devices meaningful, not just to have a glorified worksheet online just saying you're using technology, but enhance your curriculum with the use of technology to bring them to the next level, is what we are wanting. What was brought to our last faculty meeting by Nikki Locklear was the addition to what's called Relay Classroom, and I believe our teachers are going to be really, really excited for this. It's a program that basically they can manage what the students are doing on those devices. So one teacher to 30 students or 25 students in a classroom, sometimes it's hard to, and they're quick about it, where they're at on their device when you're not looking. They can use this as a tool to make sure that the students are on track and what they're on task with what they're supposed to be doing. We had a teacher attest to it that she was somewhere else besides the classroom. She was out of the building for the day, but yet she knew what she was expecting her students to do, and she was watching what they were doing, and one was on music and he wasn't supposed to be there, so she would exit it out and it would take him out of that tab. So he'd go back and she'd exit it again, and he'd go back. And so you can also send messages to them through that. You can lock their screens to where, you know, they can only go to certain websites. You can also pause their screens to where if you need their attention back, you know, they have no option to go anywhere but have eyes on you. So there's lots of good things. I think that our teachers are going to value with that program to kind of just make sure that kids are doing what they need to be. Nothing replaces, though, you know, the movement around of the teachers. But like I said, they're really quick about where they're going and stuff, and hiding where they're at. So we're excited about that. And then lastly, here comes this media center strategy back up again. This is one of those things that was kind of on our 10-year plan. Also, we've reached out to our alumni association to try to maybe provide some funds and some donations from those people to expedite some of the things that we would like to do within the library somewhat. And also, we've had additional Chromebooks that we've added within our library. Mrs. Kirkbride has designed a contract that we allow students and parents to sign so that if they need a device at home but are not able to have a device at home on their own accord, then we will let them borrow that and check that out for an evening. Last year, I believe we had 3. This year we have, I think, 7 or 8 that we are lending out. And she tells me there's a line almost every day for students to come and check those out after school. We also have had the addition of a hotspot. So we found also that some of our students may not have Wi-Fi at home, and so their devices aren't going to work to be able to do stuff on the technology devices if they don't have Wi-Fi. So Dr. Bear, we worked with him of getting these hotspots available within our library that our students can check out. So as long as they have good cell phone service, it's through AT&T, they have good cell phone service at their house, then they can have that as an added piece as well. So we're excited about that.
Good evening. Goal 3 is what I'm going to talk about. It is that we're going to use various strategies to improve student score performance in all areas to ensure all students are college career ready upon leaving RHS. The first 2 strategies, this is what we presented to you last year, is to continue to increase offerings for students and review curriculum and analyze data. Those will always be ongoing, especially in this area. Offerings that we kind of added this year, we added a conceptual statistics course for kind of more of our tech school students in the math area. It's a little more practical math for them, and they've really enjoyed that so far. We also looked at some of our dual credit classes. Some of them weren't transferring very well when students were going out to colleges, so we've switched some of those to more to Missouri Baptist, where it transfers a little easier for students, so when they go to college, the transcript shows the class that they took compared to an elective course. Reviewing curriculum, analyze data. Math, especially in the Algebra 1 area, did a lot of work in the spring, and they're continuing this year. And they're doing a very good job with that. And our foreign language is definitely looking at all their curriculum all together. We've had a couple new teachers the last few years, and they're doing a really good job collaborating on that. Last year, we talked a lot about alternative programming, alternative school stuff with you guys. And so one of our goals last year was to implement updates to the Learning Center. That's something that we did last year. We did more over the summer, and it's something we're going to continue to be doing. We made a significant change in the culture over there at the Learning Center, and happy to report this time last year we had 18 students that had enrolled in the program. We had 9 of them had dropped, so we had 9 at the time. Right now we're at 23 have enrolled, and we have 22 still enrolled. So it's been a very good change. As Sherry mentioned, we added the alternative suspension location over there as well. So 22 students along with the alternative suspension location. We've had to look at what we can do to house all these students, and we've talked about some changes that we're going to make that are fairly easy that we're going to look at actually in the next couple of weeks. So Dr. Salas may have talked about you guys, with you guys. Not completely. Okay. They're pretty minor.
That's why I haven't completely.
Okay, so this year, continuing along this goal, just like Dr. Fulton talked, the Pride Time is our 30-minute intervention time. 2008 is when it was kind of adopted at the high school. There's been some minor changes to it, but we really haven't looked at it to say, hey, is this really what we want to do? Is this the best use of our time? So we've put a committee together of 6 or 7 teachers, but the best part is we have 3 students on the committee as well. And because the time is for the students. It's really, I mean, it's when they can take a break in their day from the hard grind of their classes, they can get some work done, they can get the help they need. And it was, we've had one meeting, and it was very very informative, and the kids did a really good job talking what they needed. The deficiency in our pride time definitely is the RTI students are at RTI in the afternoon, so they don't get the pride time. So actually the day after I had that meeting, we went and talked with Dr. Herman and Mr. Chapman to figure out how we could alleviate that a little bit. We're already making a couple changes to that. There's not a perfect way to do it because of all the sending school students and all the scheduling changes, but we're definitely going to be looking to see just what we can do better for our kids during the pride time. Thanks to you all, we are implementing our school day ACT for our juniors again this year. We've had about 200 sign up, which is about what we budgeted for, so that's right on track with what we were thinking. We'll do that February 25th. We're just now starting that process, but the kids have definitely been excited and appreciate that. They also had opportunity to take a free one in December on the weekend, and that one's been well received as well. We're going to continue this year to, along with the alternative program from last year, review our web-based alternative learning curriculum. We've used A+LS for quite a long time. It has definitely served its purpose, and it still does a very good job for us. It may still be the best answer, but again, we just kind of want to look to see, is there something better out there, and what is going to best serve those kids that we can get in those situations. And then lastly, we dove into launch, it would have been 2 springs ago, or a year ago last spring, I think. We dove hard into it last summer, and we're kind of just learning the positives to it. There's definitely a lot of positives to it. There is some negatives to it. This summer, we actually had our own government, personal finance, and health courses that we did in-house, and those were very successful. It was very good for our teachers to develop them. They did a really good job with it, and the kids really appreciated it. But we're just trying to figure out the best way that it can supplement what we're doing and not take over what we're doing and not take the place of the socialization in the classroom and with the teachers that all our students need. And so we're still working on that, and we will continue to throughout the year.
Okay, so the final goal, to be frank with you, typically we don't cover goal 4 in this meeting. And it's not because we're ashamed of it or we think less of it, but it's kind of more of an internal goal. And it deals with professional development for our staff. But I felt like there's some things I wanted you to know that I think you probably inherently know, but I'm going to prove it to you. So professional development, you can see a few of the bullets there: support and involvement in regional and statewide professional organizations, encourage teachers to publish, conduct research, pursue professional opportunities, and support of them pursuing their continuing education. So we did a survey at our last CSD meeting because I wanted to get some numbers with this, because again, much like you probably, I inherently felt like we do a pretty good job of this, and this is important because we're always preaching to our students that this is the best high school in America. And I truly believe that, not because of partly because of the teachers, but more importantly because of the students we get. However, if we don't continue to get better and grow, then we can't continue to maintain the best. And so we asked some questions, and I think it comes up all at once, which I thought was a good idea at the time, maybe not now because you'll read them all. But we asked these questions. Are you a member of a professional organization? So 83%. And we asked, not just MSTA and NEA, which you hear a lot, or global, kind of more global organization, but are you a member of the math organization or the social, those kind of things? And so 83% said, yeah, we're a part of something of our staff. Do you currently hold or have you held any statewide or regional position within the organization? And it's 21%, and you think, well, that's not very high, but when you think about the state, being a state or a regional officer, I thought that's pretty good. Have you presented at a conference, published? Have you pursued other professional opportunities? 32%. So again, 3 out of 10 of our teachers are doing something. But then the one that kind of wraps up to me: do you hold a master's, specialist, or doctorate degree? 77% of our staff. So not only does that reflect back to our students, because that's important. We're continuing to learn and to grow and to become better, but our teachers exemplify that. And so I just thought that was an impressive number when I saw that, and I wanted to share that with you. So goal 4 is simply just that we will continue to push professional development. We will continue to push our teachers to get better at their craft, at what they're doing. And so that's kind of the wrap up of goal 4. So at this point, we take any questions that you might have over any of the things we talked about.
Dr. Pridgett, I have a quick question. Those percentages you just said, can you go back to? That's great. Do you have any idea how that compares to other schools in the area?
I don't, because they'll all lie. No, I'm just kidding, but no, I don't know, I don't, and I don't know, I guess some conversation, we have an Ozark Conference Principals meeting next week, so I'll ask, if they have a sense of.
As a state, it's just over 57%, but they only track the master's, advanced degrees. They don't segregate it by doctorate or. Yeah, it'd be nice to know the conference, because everybody in the conference has a doctoral column now in their salary schedule. So they're starting to see some of that, but, so it would be interesting to know.
Yeah, and I will ask that because, like I said, I think, to me, that's high. I suspect if you, even in this area, if you surveyed schools, you wouldn't get quite that high, especially on the last question. But again, it's a tribute to our district. It's a tribute to you guys as who you're wanting us to get and that sort of thing. It's important. And again, I think it's a great example for our students that you're always learning, no matter what you're doing. Other questions?
Great. Great.
Very good.
Well, thank you. It is, we're excited.
Thank you for your hard work. You get control of the clicker? That's what you get for being the lead administrator, right? Welcome, Dr. Herman and Mr. Chapman. And this is from you.
Yeah.
This is lovely.
Well, thank you.
It is.
And it's big font too, I like that, thank you.
Big fun.
What are you trying to say?
Big font. You know this is low light.
You're right.
At this point.
I do want to caution you, though, that doesn't follow along exactly with this presentation. What you have there in front of you is more of kind of a storytelling. We wanted to be able to tell the story of what we've been working on this year. So anyway, thank you for having us. I'm glad to be here. Mr. Chapman and I are very proud of what our teachers and faculty and staff are doing at the RTI and RTC. I'm especially grateful to be a Bulldog again. This is my 4th building in the district, and I can just tell you, not knocking anything, it just gets better and better. I mean, the experiences that I've had in Rolla Public Schools, we have great teachers, we have great students, and great administrative team and great board that's always supported us. So I'm very thankful to be here. I'm thankful to have this experience. So what you have in front of you just is focusing on how we're trying to achieve our mission, which is to provide a quality career tech education and leadership opportunities for our students. And really, I feel like we have the opportunity in our building to culminate what the district has been working towards all along, what the high school works towards. It's almost hard to do an observation and it not be glowing, because everything you see is they're applying their skills. They're applying real life skills every time you're going into the classroom. So it's exciting to observe that. So one of our focuses this year is just telling the story of Career Tech Ed. A lot of people aren't aware of all the great things that are taking place. So we want to be sure and change the narrative about what Career Tech education is. It's not what you typically thought vocational education was in the past. It encompasses much more than the traditional trades. We have high-tech skilled jobs in healthcare, engineering, business management, and it's high demand. This is a great time to be in career tech education. 6 out of 10 high-demand jobs are in the career tech field, or are skilled fields. We've got 10,000 baby boomers turning 65 every day. So there's going to be there currently is a huge skills gap that career tech needs to fill. And that's actually, we've got 6.6 million unfilled jobs in America, and that's largely due to a skills gap. So we're wanting to provide students the opportunity and tell the community about what we have to offer at Rolla Technical Institute and Center. So we want to share that with parents. A lot of the things that we've shared in that little booklet for you are our postings on our Facebook page. I hope you all are following us there. But it just shows the activities that the students are continually involved in. Our students, they have better attendance rates when you're involved in career tech concentration courses. you get more value for your money in a career tech ed field if you pursue that after you graduate from high school and go further in your education. And career tech students are 10% more likely than the national average to graduate from high school. If you start getting into the career tech field early on and are a concentrator, you see purpose for your education, and concentrators have a 10% higher graduation rate. So that's all great stuff that I think we need to let parents know about, we need to shout about, and that's what our goals are focusing on, helping to see, for parents to see and to increase enrollment by sharing what we're doing in the career tech field. So with our goals, with our school improvement plan, we did group up a little bit differently than they had in the past at the RTI and RTC. Rather than do it with their professional learning community, we shook up the group a little bit so it would be people that were from different programs working together and learning about each other's programs and career tech in general. And so we did get a lot of different directions that we felt like the plans wasn't necessarily specific to your program. It helped us with direction, and we changed goals and we added new goals. So goal 1 says that we'll implement effective recruitment strategies and that we're going to increase enrollment by 2% each year. That's been consistent the last 3 years. We've met that goal. Well, year 2017 it was down, but the last 2 years it's been up. So that's been very positive. You can see here the schools in bold: Cuba, Owensville, Bourbon, Stillville, and Rolla. Their numbers have increased even this year. Cuba students had an increase of 35% in enrollment at Rolla Technical Institute and Center. Stillville students had an increase of 20%. So very significant enrollment increases. And there's been a lot of different strategies that have been done to help do that. One thing that we do early on in the year is the Career Tech Showcase. We have a car show. We have kind of an enrollment fair opportunity here, a showcase where we had a surgery going on in the lower commons here. We had helicopters, emergency responders here. And then at the RTI, they were doing different displays and showcasing their programs as well. So we try to get that out there and on the radio. We give 8th graders the opportunity to come and tour. Over 800 8th graders a year come in and tour our programs to learn about Rolla Career Tech Ed, and if that's something that they might be interested in the future. We host sophomore career expos. One of them we're fortunate enough to do on one of our professional development days. Our sending schools that are in session come on that day and get to experience what Career Tech Ed is all about. So that's a great opportunity. And then we do it again in January as well with sending schools that are in session at the same time as us. So the other great thing that we've done this year is we have added robotics to our building. We've given them space at the Rolla Technical Institute. We thought this was a great opportunity, first of all, for their club, but also for them to see what we're doing at Rolla Technical Institute and hopefully feed into some of our programming there as well. So that was something that changed this year. Sophomore expos, I mentioned those just a minute ago. We also have, for the 8th grade students, a non-traditional careers event. This is something that Janelle Duncan applies for a grant every year. This will be the 3rd year that she's done it, and it's where you have students participate in activities that are non-traditional for their gender. So for example, we'll have 8th grade boys come over here and experience the nursing program, or 8th grade girls go and experience collision repair or auto tech. So this is specifically a goal to try to increase students' involvement in non-traditional careers. This is the first year that we have met and exceeded the state goal for this, so that's something to be really proud of. This will be the 3rd year of the program, and we've met and exceeded their participation, and we've met and exceeded their completion in non-traditional careers. So that's something to be proud of. I'm going to let Mr. Chapman talk for a little bit.
Good. I don't know if I can touch a clicker because I get too wild. But anyways, Dr. Herman, it's been a fresh of just a breath of fresh air. Not that she's any better than Mr. Duncan; he was wonderful too. but an outside person coming into Career Tech Ed from that high school level and coming to us and the things that I would talk to her about when she started, she was like, slow down, I don't know what you're saying. But that was giving us a great opportunity to get that message of who we are and what we're doing out to the people that may not talk the same language we do in Career Tech Ed. So that's been wonderful, great opportunity. I don't think you'll find anybody that works harder than Dr. Herman in the district. But anyways, goal 2, focus on the placement rate, our products. I talk about our products a lot. We talk to businesses about what their products are and how we can get people to make them well. We want to make our products well too, so I'll call them products is what our placement rate is. 180 days after our students end our program, complete our program, get a certificate, or finish high school, we look at them and find out what they're doing. Our hope is they're working in the field that we train them to work. And so that's what really our placement rate is about. So we want to meet and exceed that. Perkins and DESE. DESE, we all know what DESE is, Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Perkins, we throw that around like most should know. Perkins is a vocational grant given down from the federal government of $1.2 billion. Missouri, $22 million. And that money comes directly for what we do in CTE, okay? So here in Rolla, we get our share of that too for us and that consortium of folks that you saw earlier, all those sending schools. So we want to implement this year also some more strategies, implement those credentials and training. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Oh, hold on just a second, Dr. Herman. Okay, crank down through there just a second. I'm sorry. Then you get down to like 2.4. One of the big things for us is completion, placement, and licensure. We need students to start. We need them to complete the program. We need them to place and then a licensure. I won't talk about that so much more down through there. And we want to facilitate the creation of a portfolio. That would be one place I'll talk about it. We're starting that this year. Dr. Herman sure brought that to us and said, what are your students taking away from that they can show people that don't know your CTE? And that's portfolio. I'll bring that up again. Thank you. And we did meet this overall, and I'll explain in the next slide or two. So in secondary placement, we want to place at 95%. So that's pretty easy to see, 96.7. So that is, this is DESE's data. It's a little behind what Perkins data would be, but we're meeting it overall, and we're beating the state average. On the post-secondary side, for our adult students, the next slide will show you, it looks 91.36. Now, we're using Perkins data and DESE's data here. This is DESE's. Perkins would be a little more update. 91.6 we didn't meet, as that says, but they do not count students that further their education in that field. And we have a lot of students that do that. We like to talk about stackable credentials, and I will in a second. But our practical nursing students, we have a lot of them that go to a bridge program, and they will add to that. In this calculation, that doesn't count unless they went and became a practical nurse. It doesn't count if they went to become an RN right after that. So that number is a little skewed there. But we're way above the state average, of course, you can see. These are our programs that we have. Draw attention to, it also talks about dual credits, opportunities for students. I'll bring your attention to culinary arts on the left for our secondary program, Star by It. Last year, that's what we added to and helped our consortium schools with some, we added to that program of getting some dual credentials and that for that. In that slide also, we want to see it grow. We have space, we see growth. We have industry talking to us all the time about wanting more and more people to come to work for them. So we're trying to define what programs that might be at all the time. We're not stagnant in what we offer. We need to offer what the employable, what we need, the employable market bears. So for us, some of the things we're looking at in the future, probably one of the biggest ones, we're looking at automated manufacturing. I can't speak now. Automated manufacturing, I would slash it with robotics. We're very popular, and students want to take that. And we have manufacturers here in this area that are very automated in the manufacturing process. So that's something we're looking at right now for opportunities for our students. Shown you this a time or two probably, but I'm extremely proud. This, of course, is one of our products. Again, I'm talking about Kyle Williams in the middle there. But he's a product of ours. He's still in his apprenticeship program with Alexander Construction, and he's moving on that at a very good pace. And every 500 hours of a 6,000-hour program for that apprentice, he's moving on that quite well and still working for Alexander Construction. We are looking at, of course, we continue our AOE. That's through our ag program with students that are involved in that, being able to go out and work for industry outside of the school day. We're looking at bringing back CCE, which used to be COE, Cooperative Education. Some of you guys may have remembered that when we had that with Mr. Eckhoff and some things at RTI. But we're looking at bringing it back. It's under a different name in DESE now. Internships, we're always looking and promoting those. A lot of our students, we look at sending them out on an internship for up to maybe 25% of their program. Externships is something exciting. We call that for our instructors to go see. We're calling for companies and businesses maybe to help invite us in and let us get a step into those businesses during the summer or something when our instructors have that time off that maybe they can get back into the real workplace there. We also went to Joplin Monday. We took all of our staff to Joplin on Monday to see their facilities and learn what's new, and so they can learn off. Unlike a lot of programs we here have at Rolla, we don't have very many collision repair instructors in Rolla. We have one. So getting to go to a different community is awesome. It was a slick ride back maybe a little bit, but it was a great day. Great day. Next slide is probably the slide I'm always proud of. This talks about our credentials, and I call them usable and stackable. Most all the credentials that we give here are certificate programs that students can stack on with other things. And we really like that. I call them usable because they're real things that the industry needs right now. An OSHA 10 card is worth quite a bit, okay? To get an OSHA 10 card, it's probably going to cost you, if you go get it by yourself, it's going to cost you $100 plus a day. And we don't think of that as a whole lot. But going back to that portfolio, the student I showed you earlier in our apprenticeship program, he went through the OSHA program. We didn't give him a portfolio a few years ago that probably we should have, and now we're going to in the future. And if you lose that, you got to go back and get it. And that'll be good for us in the future and our students. Some of those up there, ICAR, it's a collision repair program. AHA, some of you guys may or may not know, we do the CPR, and we do it for a lot of folks around. We give out about 3,000 cards a year to our community program there. There's quite a few if you have any need there. But if you have any questions, I'll be here after goal number 3.
So on those credentials, one of the things that we hear consistently in the office, students will come back and they'll say, hey, do you have a copy of my certificate? Do you have a copy of my credential? And we don't. They don't realize the value of what they're getting at the time. They're a junior in high school. They don't realize that that's something that's going to get them employed. So we're working really hard to make sure that they'll put these portfolios together, and they'll leave with a jump drive or something that's going to have it on there for them electronically, as well as with a hard copy of it. So that's something we look forward to. Another thing that we wanted to mention here is we were fortunate enough to hire an additional construction trades teacher this year, Charles Cassidy. And one of the things Charles mentioned was his credentials that he attained at Rolla Technical Institute. He was a high school student from Stillville, so he was a senior school student, came here the middle of his junior year, had the opportunity to go with Robert Robinson to a job fair in St. Louis. And when he was in St. Louis, he got hired by the union to go enter an apprenticeship program there. And that experience is something that he's bringing back here. And something that, Lucas, Mr. Chapman likes to point out a lot is that we're bringing back products. He likes to say products, our products. And that's something to be very proud of. We have a lot of teachers at Rolla Technical Institute that were products of Rolla Technical Institute, went out in the field, were very successful, and are sharing those experiences now with our students. So we're proud of that. Something I forgot to mention earlier on goal 1, some things that we're considering looking at this year as far as increasing enrollment. This has a little bit more to do with the adult side of things. One thing that our advisory committees are suggesting, and we actually experienced it with our HVAC program, is shortening the length of the adult programming. You have to consider the cost of an adult being in a program for 2 years. They're taking on additional student loans or financial aid for staying in an additional year, and they're not being able to be in the workforce for that year. So is it really a value to that? And so we're looking at that, and they're looking at it with their individual advisories and seeing that should there be some type of tiered certificated program where 1 year you get this, the second year you would enter some kind of work apprenticeship type of situation, and it would be a different credential to give them the opportunity to earn an income while they're in adult education. So that's something else that we were looking at. Camp Discovery is something that Mr. Chapman came up with for a summer school program. Our Rolla Technical Center teachers, our adult teachers, are considering creating a Camp Discovery summer school program to add to that. So that would help with recruitment as well. So I neglected to mention those things. Finally, goal 3. Goal 3, we're going to increase the availability of district and industry and instructional technology in 100% of our career and technical education programs in order to improve student achievement. This is met, but it's always going to be ongoing because we have to grow with our fields. We did add to this goal industry. It used to be available district instructional technology, and the value of industry technology is limitless to us. It's important that our students are using state-of-the-art equipment. You have a little printout in your little notebook there that talks about some of the donations that have been made from industry just this year. They do help keep us current, and we do get state funding as well where we can apply to get matching funds. Now we're getting partnerships where we have organizations that will help match funds that the state is matching to get us proper industry-related technology. So we're proud of that. So that's one thing that we're really focusing on is our relationships and partnerships with industry. We have different people come in all the time. Right there on the screen there you see the Highway Patrol coming in, working with our Design Academy because they needed a banner designed. So this getting real life experience with industry, with people that are out there in the workforce that are going to want a job. They have to pitch something to them. So the skills that we're providing, we work closely with Manufacturing Day, with Brewer Science. My arm hit the podium. With different industry, and they give MS&T, Brewer Science, they offer our Project Lead the Way kids opportunities to go and present and pitch ideas to them. They want to see our kids get involved, and so we appreciate the relationships with them as well. With our community in general, just working on community projects, it shows that our kids, what our kids are accomplishing. So having that relationship with business and industry is important. It's important for the students. It's important for industry. They're going to be their future employees. So it's important that they're part of our relationship and training them and bringing them together. Finally, one of the other things that we're working on big this year is Perkins 5. Mr. Chapman mentioned to you a lot of our dollars come from Perkins, and this was reappropriated this last year, and we have to complete our Perkins 5 application by July of this year. So we are heavy into a comprehensive local needs assessment right now. We have program advisories, we have an institutional advisory that advises the RTI and RTC as a whole, and each program has an advisory group that advises them. So what we're doing is we're doing a survey, finding out where we have needs in our programming, and finding out where we have needs in our community as well, as far as expanding programming or removing programming or enhancing programming. So that's something that we're knee-deep in right now, and we've been very fortunate. We've had excellent turnout. You can see in the picture there, that is from our program advisory meeting, and we had excellent turnout of individuals coming and wanting to provide feedback about our individual programs. We just had our institutional advisory meeting along with our superintendents last week, and they are participating in the survey as well, telling us what they need in their communities. Our next survey, each of these surveys are a little bit different. We're going to be doing one for special populations, which will include the sending school counselors as well as our special needs teachers as well, to make sure that we're meeting needs in that area. So that's what we're working on now, planning for the future. We encourage you to come visit us. We'd love for you to come visit us, and encourage you to follow us on Facebook and see what's going on. So, do you have any questions?
Actually, I have a question on your internship program. Does that apply to the IT program as well?
Awesome question. We have internship programs with every program we do.
Okay.
Yes, and so we do, and we have it with actually our secondary students and our adult students.
Both of them? Okay. Is it something they're willing to do for free in exchange for some work experience?
Well, all of our internships, they have to be paid to count.
Do they have to be?
Yes,
Okay.
they have to be paid to count, but we work with all kinds of people in those things.
So,
we've done some really neat IT internships for some other companies.
So on those lines, though, we are coming back, reapplying for our cooperative career education employment opportunity course.
which will allow our students to have experience in industry. And not necessarily, one of the problems that we've been seeing is a lot of people are approaching us and they want students to be interns. But the definition of intern and apprentice kind of bogs things down a little bit. And especially in career tech ed, if you're going to have someone do a apprenticeship, it has to be program specific. A lot of our industry that we have in Rolla is not program specific. So it's been really hard to work with industry as much as they want to work with us. We're having to figure out what way around, that we can do that. So, for example, brewer science wouldn't, line up specifically with a specific program. So if we get this course added back and get approval to do it, it doesn't have to be program specific, the internship opportunity or the workplace opportunity. So other way that students get experience though is during class as well. For example, just from our institutional advisory meeting last week, our drafting and design teacher, she spoke, and now they've already been approached with a project. So there's going to be a client come in, sit in front of the class, say, hey, will you draw the plans for my house? This is what I want. And they'll make a donation to their activity account kind of thing.
Oh,
so we want them to see that there's going to be something in return for it, but that's, it's free in a way with a donation kind of thing. And you don't say what, but usually people are more generous than they, need to be.
One thing, I just want to comment on the article today in Phelps County Focus about the students in Mr. Stetter's class that made the blind for the student.
Yeah, and that was a great.
That was just amazing.
Yeah, and that was a great community effort though too, because industry gave to it, the students gave time to it. It was something to be very proud of, and it was insulated. That blind is going to be a warm one too. So
I thought that was really a lovely article.
Yeah.
It was very. Yeah. Congratulations to all the.
I've really enjoyed seeing all your posts, not just yours for the RTI and RTC, but also for the culinary. I know she posts a lot too, but it's really great to see a lot of those photos of those kids in action. So it's cool.
Thank you.
So stay here, guys. If you'll come down, we want to get a picture of all of you together. Excellent job. Gina's been here the whole night.
We're going to take a short break.
We are going to take a short break.
The stairs.
And we'll take a short break to hit the restroom and then come back. Good job, everybody. I'm going to scoot out of the way. I'll photobomb you. So what? It's not, you don't have to do it. You enjoy the benefits of doing it.
Center up on the bulldog, folks.
Yeah, center on the bulldog. Act like you like each other. Great job.
What did I do with that? Oh, there it is. Kyle, you have any idea where that's going to be at?
I do not, but Jim can tell us.
Where's he at? Did he
Josh.
Oh, there he is. He's right there.
I'm glad you want to talk to me.
Josh.
You coming in and talk to me?
I'll bug him.
He's talked about it, but I don't know if it's really part of it.
I just got a note. I was like, I don't know where it's at. He's right here. Hey, Jim, you know where this meeting's at on the 19th for the student rep?
Yeah, it's a lecture hall.
In the high school?
At the high school,
Okay.
yeah,
All right.
Yeah, and so last year we had, one of the years we had one person, so we just.
You're it.
So we had the application process out for a while. I haven't checked the truck and see how many we have, because she usually writes down who picks up the application.
Right.
We don't get it, we kind of track her down and see if there's an application in. But yeah, it is a lecture hall, and I'll email you and the committee, so like the scholarship committee, it's the scholarship committee, one board member. We sit together, I'll get you the absolute details on that. So I feel like, so that there's no problem messing together and letting my read ahead.
Perfect.
And then we just come together and discuss it. And we think through it.
And then the students vote on
And
it.
the student, and then we do a video.
Like a little, yeah.
They show that.
Okay, that's cool. All right, thanks. Right. Okay, awesome, thanks. It's me, yep. I'll be coming out of the woods.
They didn't say anything about leaving a friend.
Yeah.
Good to go.
See you later.
All right, we'll get back together here. We sure appreciate all the information shared with us, but we'll move on. Next up, the professional development plan. I was just gonna say, is that you or him? And I'm guessing it's him. Thank you, Mr. Hounsome.
So tonight, with the culmination of all the school improvement presentations, we can now present to you the district's professional development plan. The professional development plan is tied directly to the school improvement plan goals in each building. So I direct your attention to page 44 in your packets. The District Professional Development Committee, you see the members listed there on page 44. There's one representative from each building in the district, and we work together to lead the professional development planning across the district. You see Erin Dent from the junior high is the chair this year, and she does a lot, and I work closely with her, and I want to thank her because she helped put this together. But this document kind of ties together our professional development within the district. If you look on pages 45 and 46 are just some general information about the purpose of the committee and some events throughout the year. Page 47 is the budget which you have previously approved, but it is just formalized in this document, dollars that we spend on professional development in the district. You can see out of that total $184,000 at the top, that pays for the mentor protege program for beginning teachers in the district. Curriculum writing and CPI, which is the peaceful intervention training. And then in section C of the budget, you can see dollar amounts that are allocated out to each building that they have discretion through committees in their building to provide professional development. This is where the tie-in is to the school improvement goals that the buildings presented. The professional development dollars that we spend in the district will be tied to either the district's comprehensive school improvement plan goals, which are listed on pages 48, 49, or more likely each individual building's school improvement plan goals, which is what the buildings have been presenting over the last two meetings. And so we've summarized the new goals on pages 50 and 51 in your packet to reflect any revisions that were made this year. So altogether then, this professional development plan for the district ties together the goals for the district for each building, the budgeting, and then gives a little description of the purpose of this centralized committee. So tonight I think this is an action item. I would present this to you and ask for your approval to approve this professional development plan.
Any questions for Craig? Do I have a motion to approve the professional development plan?
I will make that motion.
Thanks, Jane.
I will second that.
Thanks. A motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you. Committee appointments. We need a board member to sit on the committee to select the new student representative, which means our Lauren's soon retiring. We'll be sad to see you go. I believe we had someone who volunteered to take that position.
Be happy to do that.
Awesome. They have a meeting coming up. We've got that information, so that they will help that process along. I believe that all that happens before winter break, right? We don't need to really vote, it's just yes, thank you. Okay, just a reminder of our future meeting dates, the 12th for our December meeting, and then the 9th and the 23rd for our January meetings. And we're into old business, so to go back to our long-range facility plans, we heard from Rick Nobles already, but we probably have some more extended discussions to have, maybe more than just maybe another work session, maybe not as long as our retreat, but to go over drawings and priorities and dollars and cents and.
So you could dedicate December 12th to that, or we could back up from that, which December 12th will be here before you know it. But as Mr. Jamison said, I don't foresee it being as long. We can have Mark here again, owner, and maybe even Lorenzo again. Be beneficial, even though he's kind of got the incremental data to us, but he knows the results of the survey as well. I've shared that with him, so we can check their availability. But if you think you can get it done on the 12th, then we can maybe plan accordingly.
We're still talking about having a regular open set. I've got a couple of items that I would need to do on the 12th as far as getting the.
Well, yeah, we would still have to pay
course
bills for
subscription
things.
book
We
approved for
would
students.
maybe pattern it like we did the retreat, only not dedicate 2 to 8 p.m.
Okay.
for that.
That's what I was
But-
gonna ask, what was on, kind of on the calendar for our board meeting if we need to come in early.
You wanted to come in at 3,
Yeah,
and
right.
when we get done, we get to have the regular board meeting at 5, but with closed.
You're right. I think,
It gives you 2 hours.
I think
to-
December would be great, because I think we need
I
to
think
make
so
a
too.
decision to move.
I'd be happy to come in early. As a matter of fact, I would prefer that.
Yes, I agree.
So Thursday, December 12th at 3 o'clock.
Great.
And if anything, we can get Lorenzo to call in, or maybe get Mark here, Dr. Dare.
Yep.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Yeah, there's a short period of time, because we have to have something decided by January the 9th, correct? And so, we really need to have it direction by the 12th of December. Yeah. And
So
we
are you
got-
saying, you don't think we can do that, or you think we can do that?
I think we can do that.
We can if we
Okay.
have the extended time, right?
Right,
That's what you're saying?
right.
Okay, so is there anything else for now on long-range facility plans or? Okay. Lauren, can you tell us what's going on in the school district?
So first of all, before I get to my usual updates on district events, Dr. Zales has asked me to give you all an update on the status of the calendar committee. So yesterday, the calendar committee met for the first time, and that was my first experience, like figuring out how you can actually come up with the calendar, and it was very beneficial for me. So I just want to share a few takeaways from that. So we just had the one draft of the calendar. And as you all know, the major difference this year is.
No, wait a minute, you see how brilliant the one draft was, right?
Excuse me, what?
How brilliant the one draft was.
Oh yes, incredibly,
Very
incredibly
miraculous,
brilliant.
remember?
No, she
I
was
told you to
perfect
say how
draft.
brilliant the one was.
Yes, sorry, I forgot my instructions. Anyways, so as you all know, I won't elaborate too much, but the August 24th start date, so some things had to be different with this year's calendar in terms of how to shift things around. But I was pleasantly surprised to see that it looks like everyone's interest can be met with the draft that we decided on. There's nothing drastically different that I've noticed with it besides the start date, and I'm very happy with what I've seen so far. But the next step from now is all the members of our calendar committee are going to meet with their constituents to see if there's anything we want to change. So the committee is made up of administrators, teachers, parents, and student representatives, and board representatives. Sorry, that's part of it, you guys. So the next step now, we don't have a next meeting planned yet because we just had the one draft, and there's probably going to be only minor adjustments, if any, because we all seemed, I think, pretty happy with it. But our next step now is we are going to take this draft back to our constituents and see if there's any input, see what the input is, if there's any problems, anything we want to edit. But that's going forward. I don't foresee anything major changing with that, but we may have a future meeting, but we'll see going forward. But I think a very successful meeting, good discussion, and no complaints from me. A very fabulous, perfect calendar.
Exquisite.
And a girl.
Yes.
Well done. Sign her up for next year.
Okay, so moving on to district events. So it's been a bit of a while since our last meeting, and it's going to be a few weeks yet until December. So there's a lot to cover in 2 months, so I'm not going to cover everything in 2 months. I'm just going to try and give you a snapshot of what our students have been up to. So first of all, have you all heard of our boys soccer team, district champions, right? Yeah, so our boys soccer team won district champions again. I believe this is their 4th year in a row, and it is the 31st district championship win for Coach Howard between the boys and girls teams. So that's very impressive. And they had their sectional game last night. Unfortunately, they lost 1-2, but it was a very close game, and they played really hard, so we're very proud of them at the high school right now. And then Veterans Day. So every year, the Rolla School District, I'm very proud because we put on a great event throughout the district to honor our veterans. And so there were assemblies, I think every school across the district, but I have some experience with how they work at the high school and the junior high. So I know at the high school and the junior high's assemblies, they have speakers, and also the high school band and choir performs. And this year, at the high school's assembly, I just want to give you an update on that. So our leadership team put on the assembly this year, and they did a great job, and they coordinated just about everything. And so our speakers this year, you all may know him more than I do, but his name was Doc Roberts, and I believe he's a former teacher and coach at the high school, and he's a Vietnam War veteran, and also our local Army and National Guard recruiter, and that was Brian Beard. So they both gave speeches, and our band and choir performed for those. And then also so something I thought was special, the middle school hosted its first responders luncheon yesterday. Did any of you see that? I think it was posted on someone's social media. And so, yeah, oh, okay, awesome. And so that was for firefighters, policemen, first responders, so that's a great event going on. So going back to the high school, our winter sports season is underway, so our fall sports I think have all just about concluded. I'm looking forward to winter sports. I think I even saw a few basketball games within the next week or two, which seems too early. I don't know. I can't believe it's winter already. But be on the lookout for those games coming up. You can check those times yourselves, but there will be lots of games coming up with our winter sports. And then also at the junior high, looking towards Christmas season, I think some of our administrators mentioned this, but they are getting ready for their Deck the Halls event or decorating thing?
Yes.
Yes. And so that's going to be a parent group is going to decorate the school for the kids so they can have a great Christmas season. That's interesting. And then also something I would like to note, a lot of the clubs I've noticed at the high school and even different schools throughout the district are doing charity drives for the holiday season. So I know there's like a canned food drive going on for Thanksgiving at the high school right now. And then also some events to look forward in the future. There's going to be another FAFSA work night soon, and that's going to be November 21st from 5 to 7 p.m. at the high school. And so I think I've mentioned these before, but if you have a student who is a senior in high school and looking to apply for college, they really need to fill out a FAFSA. So if you come to the FAFSA work night, you can get an entire FAFSA done in that night, and you don't have to worry about it anymore. So I definitely I would look to come to that if you have a high school senior. That's November 21st. And then also the high school, the annual talent show is coming up. And so that will be November 22nd from 6 to 9 at the middle school auditorium. There's lots more happening in the district, so definitely check out the district calendar if you're looking for more, but that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Very good. Thanks, Lauren. Just want to call your attention to the written reports and remind you of candidate filings starting December 17th. And I need a motion for us to go back into closed session.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Brian.
I'll second.
Thank you, Shannon. And from down on the far end, I need a roll call vote.
Yes.
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 Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. We're in closed session.
Lauren? You're a busy girl.
I'm very busy at the moment. I'm hoping it's going to be less busy next